Question 1. Communication and culture are inherently mutually beneficial and developed together. Our language is often determined by the cultural zeitgeist, and how the people talk around us is how we will talk to them, as long as you're immersed in that culture for long enough. Many of these words and phrases that we use often have become popularized because of culture, and this being from media like books, movies, TV, viral videos, and memes. Words and phrases that people perceive as cool and interesting often find their way into our vernacular because it makes us sound more interesting and feel cooler when we say things that will likely have other people presume that we are also cool. Many words and phrases that were invented by Shakespeare, who everyone knows because he's one of the most iconic and popular playwrights in history, many words that were and phrases that were invented by him are still used today because they are culturally significant, and they are accurate descriptors of what they're describing. Words like eyeball and swagger, phrases like in a pickle and in a wild goose chase were all popularized by his writings. Another example was in the early 2000s and the late 90s. "What's up?" from a Budweiser commercial was popularized and used a lot because it was a reference to something that was always on TV. And people still say "what's up" to this day, and it's still referenced in other media. More modern examples would be viral words from viral memes and videos like skibbity, Riz, and Sigma that often the younger generation uses. We also can look to former, like past cultures, and understand that they address people more formally. Their conversation seems higher brow and more sophisticated because as we've expanded our culture and kind of relaxed our conversational style, we've adapted our language to become more casual. We address people mostly the same unless it's a person of significantly higher power than you. Then you will say sir or ma'am, probably, just to show respect. But oftentimes our conversation is much more casual than it was in the past due to our more relaxed style of culture, at least in America. Question 2. Cultural differences are very important to understand because this can be a barrier to effectively communicate with another individual. Many other countries, other than the United States, have different idioms and metaphors and expressions that they use to compare things or to express pain or whatever it may be. They have different expressions than we do in the United States. So keeping that in mind when communicating with another individual is very helpful. Once again, their location is a very big factor because they don't necessarily, like other languages, use tones and body language more or less than the United States. So you'll have to keep that in mind when conversing with them because that's what they're used to. Their age also affects this because, like I said, words go in and out of style. You'll notice that every generation of people talks a little bit differently just because of the culture they were raised in and the words that were popular at that time. Religion can also affect this because some people, for instance, don't use foul language or curse words because it goes against their religion. And doing so may seem very hostile, while to some people who were not necessarily raised religious and were brought up around these words and able to use these words, use them more casually, not necessarily in an aggressive circumstance. This can cause many communicative issues. For instance, a person who speaks English as a second language may not understand those comparisons, like I mentioned earlier, that are unique to the US, especially like the measurement system. If you're asking how big something is, that is a huge barrier. I mean, we can look it up now, but in the past, that's definitely been a huge barrier because the rest of the world does not use pounds and inches and feet. So that's certainly a huge barrier. This can be an issue because different cultures rely nearly completely on words that are said, and some cultures and languages rely much more to the attention to tone and body language, like I said earlier. So these are things that can very drastically barrier our effective communication. Question 3. Personally, I tend to be more comfortable in a situation which I can make people laugh. So I lean into that when I'm conversing. Usually, how I've shaped my social identity is to be kind of a funny person. I like to make jokes and have lighthearted conversations. And I like to involve the people in the conversation to kind of get us all to laugh together. And I think this social idea sometimes makes it so people don't reach out to me and talk to me like for a serious issue, for a serious problem that they're having, or to just decompress and rant to. I often have to stress to people that I'm close to that I'm always willing and able to support them and hear them out for any serious discussion about any issues they're working through. So oftentimes I notice that friends mostly don't come to me to talk about that. I usually have to ask them how they're doing in a serious manner, and more than just a, hey, how you doing? Good. How about you? More of like a, how have you been? How has your life been going? And I have to really trigger that conversation to really connect in that manner, because I've shaped myself to be more of a funny person, more of a lighthearted kind of person, a casual converser, I guess you would say. Question 4. Family, community, and religion are very influential in so many cultures because they shape the way we interact with those around us, who we respect, and how we talk to certain individuals throughout our community. Now, every country is a little bit different in their religion and how their communities are structured, how their families are structured. So this often is another barrier, like from question 2, this is a barrier for our culture. The way you're raised affects your entire life. The values instilled at a young age usually inform all of the decisions you make for the rest of your life. People in close communities and that were raised in close communities often are much more friendly. You'll see them wave or say, hi, how you doing, as you walk by them. Because in that close community, they kind of knew everybody. And so when they move possibly to a bigger place, they continue that friendly kind of towny nature, whereas people in cities don't connect as much because there's so much city, you can't really connect with every single person. So they tend to be a little more reserved, at least in the United States. Religion is also a big factor because, like I said in question 2, many people don't use foul language or curse because it goes against their values and beliefs. There's also certain aspects of religion that affect the way you communicate and the way you view the world. So this may affect just your overall tone to the world and your overall biases towards certain people or certain things, which will affect your views and how you communicate those views to other people. Finally, family is probably the biggest aspect out of these 3 because you're with your family the most of the time when you're growing up and developing your language. So a family that teases others may tease people to show their affection, whereas a family who doesn't tease people, the youth in that family would not tease other people, and the family's youth that does tease people, if they were to tease those who would be teased, that would be viewed as like a mean gesture, as a rude kind of thing, rather than viewed as lighthearted and showing that they care for you and are appreciative of your company, whether that be romantically or platonically. So family can often be a big like communicative barrier because that's the biggest sense of where you draw your language. Like I said earlier, in question 2, I think, a family who is able to curse and has been raised to use those words in a more casual manner, not in an aggressive and angry sense all the time, who use those against or use those in communications, not against, use those in communication with a family who does not curse, who did not curse, and was not raised that way. That could be viewed as some sort of hostile communication because those words are viewed as much more harsh to them. This family is certainly one of the biggest rift causing in communication and can be a reason why two people don't get along very well.